A quick disclaimer before we get into the show. The news that the Giants had fired Joe Judge broke literally 30 minutes after we finished recording this episode. So in the show, we still talk about the Giants and Joe Judge as if Joe Judge was going to be there for the 2022 season. So you can ignore those segments. We are aware that he's gone. Praise be.
Listen now, we the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of The Scoreboard. It is playoff time. It's playoff time, which means a shorter schedule for us to go through, which means you got some extra time later on in the show for miscellaneous stuff. And today's topic, I guess, aside from predictions, is going to be our look back at the bold predictions we made about 18 weeks ago going into the season, and if we hit on any of them, because they're bold predictions, and how the bets that we made out of them shaped out so far. So we are going to be reviewing those later on, which is going to be a lot of fun. First of all, Smokey, how are you doing? I have a faint idea.
I am great. Dude, finally, we did it. Man, and not only that, like, you had a lead on me, but I'm really glad that I decided to make Georgia, the Alabama game, part of our predictions.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because that put us back at a tie, because you had a one-game lead on me up to that point. So I basically kept my same distance ahead of you going into the playoffs.
Did you decide to make that part of the count before or after the game?
No. Check your sheet that I sent you.
Yeah, I know you wrote it down there, but would it count? I didn't know if it would count. Okay.
I said it on the show last week, and you were like,
okay, fair. I'll believe it. It doesn't matter anyway, because you're ahead so much. It's very unlikely that I was gonna win that anyway. So you've taken that no matter what, because it was an unpredictable week. Did you get the final scores for last week? It felt like it could have been a pretty bad one.
Oh, absolutely. Well, if you take out the Georgia-Alabama game, I had 7 correct picks and you had 8.
Wow, that's not great.
Not very good, yeah.
Well, it sounds like a week 18 when you get situations like the Colts. I mean, we'll have time to talk about the Colts at some point, but that was terrible. We also have time to talk about Bama and Georgia. We have some small takeaways from that game as well, but let's start with the most important stuff here: NFL wild card playoffs. And the first game we're gonna look at, and it's like the first. I already don't want to talk about it because it's the Raiders. Raiders at the Bengals. And why are the Raiders here? I don't understand. Why are they here?
Well, because somehow everything happened to work out perfectly for the Raiders to get here. I mean, obviously they didn't go 8-1 like you predicted. They ended up 10-7 when it was all said and done, because the Chargers just couldn't hang on to it and put the Raiders out of their misery. So here we are now. The Raiders, without John Gruden, is in the playoffs. And, I mean, I want to say the Bengals are a much better team than the Raiders. It is obvious, right? But if Joe Burrow is not at 100%, this could be a very close game, in my opinion. Even though it's in Cincinnati, I think the Bengals should have the advantage. They should be favored, in my opinion. I don't know if they will be because of Joe Burrow's injury, but I will definitely take the Bengals at home and hope they finally put an end to the Raiders for the season.
Well, if you'd asked me what was one of the worst things that could happen to start the year 2022, I would have said the Raiders make the playoffs. But if you ask me what's like something that's even worse than that to start the year, would be the Raiders winning a playoff game. That is something that is not allowed to transpire on my watch. So I will also take the Bengals, because just out of defiance, really, even if they weren't favored, and they are slightly favored, 5.5 points at home, which is not as much as you would think. So there is some concern about Joe Burrow worked into those betting lines for sure. I have no doubt, because you get 3 points for being at home. Just a field goal. Team advantage? No, they're much better than the Raiders. So there is something there too. If this was the Chargers, which it should have been, I would have loved to watch this game. It would have been great. Burrow, Herbert. I might start calling him Justin Rogers into the future, because he's a very talented quarterback, and he gets let down by his team horribly in the worst possible situations. I sincerely hope they turn this around, because this can't go. Like, the Chargers are not even they're not even one of the worst teams if they made the playoffs. They're a top 10 team.
Yeah.
In the entire league, top 5 probably AFC team, and they managed to miss the playoffs. And you got the Raiders in, and there's some the Steelers are also in, by the way, which is completely nuts to think about that the Chargers are not. We'll get to the Steelers later on. That was a proper miracle for them. Give me the Bengals, please, Joe Burrow. I need Joe Burrow to show up. Home field. I like the Bengals anyway. I wouldn't mind to see them win a playoff game here, and not the Raiders. Like, can't be the Raiders, right? Patriots at the Bills.
Divisional rematch. We just saw this game last week, and I suppose both teams were actually trying in this game, right? I mean, they both wanted that top seed. I guess it really didn't matter, though, when you look back on it, because we are in the position we are in right now, and they're going to have to do it all over again. Patriots have won one of these in a tough-fought game in the rain. It was raining. It was pouring that night. And that was the Mac Jones three passes game right there. And the Patriots won 14-10 or whatever. And then the rematch last week. And the Bills took that one. So this sets us up for the Bills actually being able to play at home, because they have the advantage overall, and I am going to take the Bills at home to do it again.
So I want to start this this entire thing off by first of all making some enemies, and also, which means I'm going to pick the Patriots, by the way, when I have more to explain. But also because you obviously won the regular season, it is my mission to win the postseason at least, right? So yes. And there's not a lot of games. Like, we're having the amount of games every week. So not a lot of games to gain an edge. I'm going to take my spots where I can get them, and this is one of them. Bill Belichick has more postseason experience than the entire Buffalo Bills team combined, and I know Mac Jones is a rookie. He does not play like one. He does not play like a rookie. He hasn't played like a rookie all season. He's been ready to start week 1, and he's going to be ready to start in a playoff game. This is going to be a very, very even game. No one wants the Patriots to win outside of Patriots fans. Not a soul would root for the Patriots, obviously. But I'm going to antagonize some people and take them. I picked the Patriots to win the game. Which would be sad to see, because Buffalo is a great opportunity, and I know I'm taking against the odds here, because the Bills are second favorite to win the entire AFC behind the Chiefs, which is interesting because the Titans with the 1 seed only third favorites to win the AFC. Interesting, but yeah, I got the Patriots. Give me Mac Brady and Bill Belichick in old glory. Hate to say it, but that's what it's going to be. Experience prevails. The Eagles at the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, another team that seems like they've been playing over their head and somehow made it into the playoffs here. The Eagles got stomped. Well, their second stringers and third stringers got stomped out last week, or this week actually. The Bucks should easily handle the Eagles. I don't think this is going to be much of a game. I mean, I don't know. There are those situations where we see the Bucks just come out and do nothing inexplicably, just do nothing in the middle of the game for some weird reason that makes absolutely no sense. A lot of key pieces missing on the Bucks still, but I think that with Brady and the pieces that he does have, they should have enough to shut down that run game of the Eagles. You know, that is their best part of their defense, is the run game. And that is all the Eagles have, is a run game. So I'm going to take the Bucks at home.
Yeah, this is the 2 seed versus 7 seed. I cannot help but agree. Also, the biggest spread I'm seeing here outside of the Kansas City-Pittsburgh game. Tampa Bay is a huge favorite at home, and it would be a huge upset if they didn't win it. That being said, I don't particularly like either team. I don't have anything against either team, but I don't particularly like either quarterback, I should say. But again, I'm going to go with experience, right? Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, and the Bucs are also just a better team in most cases. The Eagles have a chance if they're able to run the football consistently and win the time of possession game. and they're able to tire that defense out, because we know the defense there's a good run stuffing defense, but once they start getting tired, they start to having to kind of lean on the line of scrimmage, and you can roll out the quarterback, open those lanes up for him to throw on the run. That's when you have a chance to get that offense active. But it's gonna be tough to do because Tampa Bay is pretty good at controlling time possession themselves. So I'll take the Bucs, say they move on, and probably host another playoff game there. This is all I wanted. This is all I've been looking for. I said, and this is true, you can confirm this, and if you want to go back and listen to older episodes, I said this too, like 8 weeks ago or something on the podcast. The only thing I want is for the Niners to play the Cowboys in the first game. All I wanted is for the seeding to fall in a way that we get Dallas. And it has happened. My prayers have been heard. Niners and Cowboys.
Yeah, you guys pulled it out to make this happen, for sure. Squeezed right in there. The Cowboys were dead set, and the Cowboys just beat the stew out of the Eagles. I mean, like I said, it was the second and third stringers, so. But the Cowboys can do that. They can show up and put 50 on a team from time to time, or they can show up and have troubles getting over 14 points for some weird reason. I guess it's kind of like the Bucs, except for the bad games for the Cowboys don't tend to be quite as bad as the 1 or 2 bad games that the Bucs tend to have, where they'll put up 0 to 3 points. Cowboys, I'm expecting that the home field advantage is going to help here. I know you're probably going with the 49ers, so I'm going to take the Cowboys at home.
I can't not take the Niners, right? What would it be if I didn't take them, though? I'm going. In fact, I have a good reason to take them. I'm sure it's the correct pick, and I'm going to continue with the religious thematic because this is everything falling into place at the same time. This is a historic game. It's recurring at on the 40th anniversary of the catch, the weekend of the 40th anniversary of the catch, which is also a Niners-Cowboys playoff game, by the way, which kickstarted one dynasty, and I might see another one. But I think, and honestly, I think Vegas agrees with me on this. Like, this is not as far-fetched as you would think, because this game the Cowboys are a 3-point favorite at home, which means it's a pick'em. This is actually a coin flip. Even though Dallas has the number 1 offense and they score at will and whatever best defensive rookie class in the league, whatever you can come up with. A lot of people want to talk about mismatch and that the Cowboys' biggest weakness is stopping the run, and that has some merit to it because we've seen teams that on paper have more talent than the Niners, and most prominently the Rams twice this year. When it came down to getting gritty and stopping the run, and they were actually just starting to get beat up on both sides of the line, they lost a threat. And that's something that can happen to Dallas as well, because that offense relies a lot on rhythm, the Cowboys offense does. And if they are on the sideline for an entire quarter, that is the most deflating thing that can happen to you. So if this is the kind of like 13-7 run first kind of game, I think the Niners have a really good shot in this one. And of course, I have no choice but to pick them, right? I'm not going to sit here and give this entire speech, take the Cowboys. Not going to happen. Niners to win it, Niners to move on. This is all I wanted to see. I never got to see the Niners-Cowboys games back then. Make it a thing again. Bring it back. Except that, no, don't, because that means the Cowboys need to be good for an extended period of time, which I don't want that to be the case. Eliminate them, get them out of there, move on. All I want to see. Great game. I'm glad I got the final spot as well. And plus, this is a Nickelodeon game for anyone who can be made to care. So there's going to be an MVP on the line. And I want to say, if it's not Deebo Samuel, that we're going to have a problem with a major network next week. But it's going to be Deebo Samuel, so we'll be fine. We got, this is a late night game. The Steelers, who are somehow in the playoffs, at the Chiefs. Oh,
God. Yeah. I've got nothing against the Steelers, but they don't belong in this playoffs. They're akin to the Eagles, in my opinion. This should have been the Colts. The Colts should be in this game right here, or even the Chargers. You know, it shouldn't have worked out, but it did. The Steelers barely squeaked by the Ravens without Lamar Jackson. The Ravens without superstars outside of Mark Andrews, and they beat them by 3 points. Like, this was no feat. The Steelers, this doesn't mean the Steelers are good because they made the playoffs. Big Ben is still probably playing his last game now since it wasn't last week, and that's going to be the end of it. The Chiefs are going to take this one easily at home.
I'd rather see the Texans. I'd rather see the Davis Mills Houston Texans. The way they've played the past 2 weeks, this would be actually, because they've been good. I mean, they've held their own against the Niners for over half. They've held their own against Titans, the number 1 seed. And Davis Mills is kind of, late season upswing there. I would prefer the Steelers is I know that it's interesting for Big Ben. He's kind of getting his Drew Brees moment like he did last season, but we know how it ended for Drew Brees in the worst possible way. That's kind of what I think. That's kind of what Ben's facing as well in this situation here. So the absolute last team I wanted to see. Now, congrats TJ Watt breaking that sack record or tying that sack record. If I can go off on this little tirade, I hear a lot of people talking about how records are now meaningless because there's an extra game to the season, so people have more time to do stuff, and I agree with that in most cases. If we're you want to talk about Cooper Kupp and he didn't even break the record, but the receiving, the rushing records, all the pass, I agree with that. I don't agree with that for defense, and I've made this argument a couple times in discussions with people. They're saying, "Oh, he got an extra game compared to Strahan, it's not worth it." If Michael Strahan played that season in 2021, he'd had 15 sacks because he'd drawn 7-8 flags with the rules that TJ Watt's playing under today. Breaking the sack record today is harder than it ever was. It's the exact inverse as it is for offensive records. Is it for defense? And also TJ Watt missed 2 games, so he's technically just played 15, which makes this a more impressive season than Michael Strahan, hands down. I will not barge on that. It's harder to play defense now than it was then. The two sides develop the opposite way. Defensive records become harder to break, so I wanted to have that on tape, just wanted to get that out. But that being said, the Steelers are getting completely overrun by the Chiefs, hopelessly. This is the least interesting game on the slate by far. Yeah, it should have been the Colts. You could insert the Chargers anywhere and say it should have been them because that's true, but this probably should have been the Colts, yeah. And then we have, this is also an interesting one, the NFC West battle, Cardinals at the Rams.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get into this just in a second. I want to point out real quick on the extra game thing with the records. Like, yes, we can point out that they do have extra games now, or at least one extra game, but we still need to honor these records because we didn't stop honoring records once we went to 16 games back in the day. So we still need to honor the records, and yes, in discussions you can point out that, oh, well, that was after the seasons went to 17 games, but I still think the records still should stand as the record, regardless.
Oh yeah, they should stand, but the value of them is, the value differs, right? If you get, as a receiver, like if Cooper Kupp has the exact same receiving stats now that Jerry Rice did in 1986, that's different. Because Rice got his head taken off every play. And he got held all the way down there. And Cooper Kupp can't be touched. The same goes for quarterbacks. And for a defensive lineman, it's the exact opposite way. Like, you just ran through everything in front of you, grabbed the guy by whatever body part or part of the helmet you could find and slam him in the ground. Can't do any of that anymore. Michael Strahan played relatively in the relatively modern era compared to like the 60s and 70s, which those pass rushers don't have records because, well, they didn't pass that much back then. And Strahan was kind of in that that perfect era where the passing game was the main focus and quarterbacks weren't invincible yet. So that's all I wanted to get out there. Of course, records are going to still be records, but slight asterisk to their value there. But yes, Cardinals at the Rams.
Yep. Man, it's another divisional rematch here. Cardinals looked below average. I mean, but they weren't trying to play their best against the Seahawks this past week, and the Rams looked below average. Which, I don't know. I want to say the Rams are a better team. I guess records doesn't really show that, at least scoring in games, because the Rams does have one win over the Cardinals at the end of the season. And it's tough, though. I'm having a really tough time picking this game. And I want to go with my heart and say the Rams are going to take this one at home. But I think this is a toss-up. I think this game could go either way, you know. I don't know who has the answers for this, but I'm going to take the Rams at home.
It's a tough one to pick for sure. Like looking at the past week, there's no real indication there. The Cardinals also did underperform, lost their game to Seattle, and the Rams had probably the most deflating thing happen you could possibly have happen going into the playoffs. Going up 17-0, and then losing in the way that they did. Now it didn't cost them the division title, but it could have. If the Cardinals beat the measly Seahawks, this game would be in Arizona, or rather, this game would not happen at all because the seeding would be different. But a lot of things could be different. Now, luckily for the Rams, didn't turn out that way. But that's a deflating way to lose the game. Just for reference, they were up by a touchdown and no timeouts for the Niners with after the 2-minute warning, minute 54 on the clock. Had the ball on a first down, they managed to lose the game. At that point in time, they had a 99.6% win possibility for the Rams, which is the highest ever recorded stat that ended up being lost since 2016, since the NFL started keeping track. So that's a once in a decade kind of game being blown. Didn't cost them too much, but mentally it's tough to recover from. I will say this though. Both of those teams don't have much going for them in terms of real playoff experience as it stands right now. Now, the Rams have been there before, but the big question mark there is Matthew Stafford, right? Where is he really? Has never been able to do it with the Lions. Wildly struggling, leads the league, by the way, in interceptions in that last game. You wouldn't believe that we talked about him as MVP for so long. He tied Trevor Lawrence with most interceptions in the NFL, with throwing 2 more in Week 18.
Yeah, they all came at the end of the season.
And he started veering off target. Even though he got Odell Beckham, who's been great, and he got Cooper Kupp, who's been all-time great.
Yeah.
So it's an extremely tough one to pick. I will give it to the Rams as well, and I will give it to them because of their defense. I think the Cardinals are a very different team than the Niners, and I think it's a much better matchup for the Rams. I think the Rams, in particular, are not equipped to deal with the power run game that the Niners employ. I think the Niners are... It's a case of like the way we saw the SEC teams win their college playoff games against Cincinnati and Michigan respectively, where they just ended up overpowering them on both sides of the line. They just had more mass, right? More endurance on the offensive defensive line, and just beat them up. And that's the case. That's what a lot of teams don't do it anymore. So teams aren't equipped for it, and the Rams in particular are not equipped for that. They are made to rush the passer and to lurk on routes. And also they have fast linebackers, so they're going to be able to deal with Kyler Murray a bit better than they would with a more traditional West Coast style. So I'll take the Rams as well. Close one. They are 4-point favorites with home field factored in. That's only 1 point, so it's clear this is nearly a toss-up as well. But I'll say they get it done and get Matthew Stafford his playoff win. But hopefully both these teams will be eliminated by the time we talk Super Bowl, because I don't like them. But that's our picks. That is our picks for the NFL for the wildcard round. Let us know yours in the comments. We got something else to discuss. What do you want to go on? What do you want to go on first, actually? Because we have a couple topics here. I just remind you we have to check the bets, review those real quick. But whatever you want to talk about first, we can do. I don't mind.
You want to talk about the national championship?
I suppose. Yeah. I'm gonna let you start. Or do you want me to start?
I will start by saying.
Okay, I have less.
All right, I'll start by saying, yes, I still believe in my conspiracy theory. I believe that it all played out exactly like I said it was going to play out, and Georgia is still the best team in the country, and the SEC made a ton of money for it. So, I mean, this game was obvious that it was a defensive battle at first. It's obvious which quarterback was better, and that was Bryce Young. Bryce Young is exceptionally, just tremendously more talented than Stetson Bennett, and that was obvious in this game. Although Stetson Bennett had just happened to come through at the right time in the fourth quarter and end up taking this game over, and the Bulldogs put up 20 in that fourth quarter. And Alabama just couldn't overcome it, especially with the interceptions and the sacks that Bryce was taking this whole time. Now, you want to talk about winning in the trenches. This game was basically won at the line of scrimmage, in my opinion. The thing about Kirby Smart's team here, he has gotten bigger on both sides of the ball on the line since he has been there. I remember in 2017 when this game like this first happened in the national championship, Georgia and Alabama. I remember looking at this game and saying, wow, why is Alabama's line so much bigger than our lines? On both sides, our offense was smaller than their defensive line, and our defensive line was smaller than their offensive line. And, having a power run team that was headed by Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, they couldn't do much. That was their only option. Jake Fromm wasn't going to just put the team on his back and start chucking it downfield, although he did hit a couple good Riley Ridley shots downfield and Mecole Hardman, but it just wasn't enough. Now, when it came to this game, it's almost like an even playing field on both sides of the ball. So that's why we saw that defensive battle through most of the game until finally Alabama's defense started wearing out, and Georgia's defense was still fresh enough to take over this game. And that was the outcome, 33-18. I still think Georgia threw the game in the SEC championship. I'll let you rebuttal.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I'm going to throw that conspiracy out based on lack of evidence. Of course, it wasn't completely refuted because Bama didn't win convincingly the same way. But the way that Georgia won does not conclusively prove that they threw the SEC championship. And that's because of the following. Alabama was 3 good play calls away from winning this game handily at halftime. They got into the red zone every time. Like, it seemed like at will. Bryce Young, top notch, right? But if you turn 4 red zone drives into 12 points, you're not winning. And here's the deal. In the first game, SEC championship game, they burned them over the top. They didn't need red zone drives because they scored 50-yard touchdowns. How they scored 50-yard touchdowns? Well, John Mechie and Javonte Williams. Guess who got hurt? Right? Guess who wasn't there last night? And Alabama had to play dink and dunk offense and actually try to execute in the red zone, which they failed to do. Georgia is less of a winner in this game than they are a beneficiary of Bill O'Brien still being horrible. And I'm not gonna give Bryce the Steve this time because he didn't rise above it by himself, though I'm sure he will once again next year.
He looked like the only good player on the field.
And he was the best player in Alabama. But if you want to be Steve, you gotta win that game. So I'll say this, so because I'm not giving that out for nothing either. So he's only Bryce. He's only Bryce for today. But of course, this offense is much hampered by having lost their top 2 wide receivers, and that allows the Georgia defense to focus much more so on the run game and not have to worry about getting toasted vertically so much. And that was a huge help. Just the threats were not there as much, and with those 2 out, yes, Georgia was a better team. They're a higher quality team at that point. If those 2 are in, I think those teams are completely evenly matched. But even as it was there, this game, this was not dominating. This was not one team clearly better than the other.
Because of Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is the weak link here. If we had, like I said, if we would have switched quarterbacks, if Bryce was on Georgia and Stetson was on Alabama, this is a 50-0 game. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Stetson didn't give up 5 red zone drives in the first half.
No, he was getting sacked in the first half. He was getting sacked for 10, 15-yard losses, and
he wasn't doing much.
The ball on his.
He wasn't doing much himself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, of course, in the first half, he got kind of lucky, and he has to thank his defense and the incompetence of Bill O'Brien calling a play in the red zone that they just didn't score a damn touchdown when they could have had 28. Yeah, they had 9 or they had 12, which is not enough, and that ended up costing them down the line because at some point Georgia had a touchdown drive, and then and from that point they were playing from behind. and you have to try catching up, and then you have another touchdown drive, and you missed your opportunities to go ahead. This game could have been over by halftime. Like, this game could have been a 20-point lead by halftime. We'd be done.
Yeah, but you could say that about any game. Like,
we can't say that about it. No, we can't say that about any game.
Any close game, like you could say, if the Colts would have actually connected, if Carson Wentz would have connected with Michael Pittman just a couple more times, then the Colts would be in the playoffs. Yes, but it didn't, because maybe the other team was just better on that day.
But the Colts didn't get inside the 15-yard line 5 times and came up with single-digit points. That's not what happened. They didn't
I don't know.
do
I saw
anything.
Good drives out of them. They
didn't do anything. They were horrible all game. Couldn't put it together. Jonathan Taylor looked bad. Carson Wentz looked bad. No one did anything. They looked terrible. This Alabama team was every way as good as Georgia for 4 quarters, except for 1 point, which was executing in the red zone. Georgia did twice, Bama did not. Only once.
Let's talk about the run game. Brian Robinson, their number 1 running back's been there for like 5 seasons now, and projected to be a pretty decent draft pick this year. 22 attempts for 68 yards. Let's go over to Georgia side. Zamir White, mediocre. 13 attempts for 84 yards, which is no outstanding stat here, but
it's all right.
6.5
for a shared backfield. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and James Cook, 6 attempts for 77 yards, which is outstanding. Not to mention the passes that James Cook caught, and I think he's going to be a pretty high pick this coming up season.
They were efficient. They were more efficient. Absolutely.
Way more efficient. They
not
won
doubting that.
In the trenches, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's a sign of defensive efficiency, bending but not breaking. You know? It's not defensive efficiency. This is 2 teams that are even teams that one played more efficiently than the other. And the SC Championship game, it was the other way around.
Yes.
It was Bama playing more efficiently. This is not one team was clearly better once, then the other team was clearly better the other time. Those are evenly matched teams that played 2 games. Both games went different ways. Not enough evidence for me to buy the conspiracy, as much as enticing as it is. And I'm not saying it didn't happen, but the burden of proof, I don't know. That's with you.
Like I can't prove that it did happen. There's no way to prove that. I'm just saying that's a conspiracy theory that looks like it could be possible. Is all I'm saying.
There's not enough circumstantial evidence from last night's game. There could have been. There realistically could have been, but there was not. Also, the final score is much out of proportion because that last pick, of course, that was celebratory for the defense. I said to you, this feels like what the Packers defense gets to do sometimes after Aaron Rodgers wins the game on the final drive, to just get a pick or a big sack or some takeaway just to feel good about themselves a little bit. But that was...
Stetson Bennett is the next Aaron Rodgers.
Listen, their logo looks the same. Stetson Bennett, there he is. That's my biggest takeaway, though. I said this to you. This game means that Stetson Bennett's an NFL quarterback 6 months from now.
Probably so. Just
He'll get a shot. I really wish that he will. Like, that's all I want for you. Is that he's the replacement. And are there going to be any Falcons/Georgia fans that are actually going to root for him, like Kenny Pickett to the Steelers?
Yes. There's definitely the Georgia subset out there that thinks that Stetson is the greatest story of all time. That they were rooting for him 100%, cheering against JT, and so much so that they wanted to see this underdog story happen so bad that they wanted JT to be injured just to see this happen. And I mean, I guess you gotta give credit where it's due. It played out that way, and Stetson Bennett has a national championship, but doesn't make him a good quarterback, though.
All right, next quarterback at the Atlanta Falcons. You heard here first.
Oh God!
If it's not Jake Fromm in free agency, it is certainly Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
And by the way, this just to dampen your mood a little bit. Remember that bet that we had that you wanted to make to kind of prove your conspiracy?
What was it?
It was that Alabama would score less than 17 against Georgia.
Oh, God, they scored 18, man.
They scored 18. They scored 18. So just all the field goal kicking just about got me one can.
Exactly. I had the right concept going on, though.
It was close. I definitely expected more. But then it could have just as well been 34. But you need touchdowns. That's what that is. Okay, speaking of our bets, let's move on to our bold predictions and our yearly bets that we had made going into 2021 season. And if you want to rewatch that episode, still available. You have to scroll down a little bit on the channel page, but that's the scoreboard. Before the week 1 predictions, or a couple weeks before that, we talked about bold predictions going into the league. And I'm just going to go through a list of all the ones we made and talk about how they turned out. We're going to start with yours. We have 5 of yours, 4 of mine. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to start off with yours. And the first one was that you picked Carson Wentz to be a top 5 quarterback.
Oh, no. Not after this game. Oh, Jesus.
I'm always going to give you some time to react to that. Well, he thoroughly is not. Didn't have to dig through too many stats. Passer rating generally being the most important one. Then you look at turnover ratio and general pass yards, also a record. But as if week 18 kind of summed this up for us pretty well, this is...
He had every opportunity to do it. I mean, maybe this is just a symptom of Carson Wentz just doesn't have it anymore. I mean, maybe that's what we're seeing here. Because he's got the pedigree, or he has the draft capital. I won't even say pedigree. He did go to a small school at North Dakota State, but he's proven himself. He had an MVP type season until he was injured 1 year, and that injury took him down a notch, and he came back to play for probably the best offensive line in the NFL, or at least the top 5, and the trajectory was all in line. Like, he was all set up to do this, and he just doesn't have it anymore.
I want to believe that he still does, because on any given day you could turn on the Colts and Carson Wentz is a perfectly serviceable starting quarterback. In fact, he's above average. He's talented. He can still play. The issue is that always comes through is that he is whatever is the opposite of clutch. Like when it matters, when it comes down to it, like that game, he just choked like he'd never choked before. You see, had him in a good position, right? The Colts were looking at one point were looking like a number 1 seed.
Yeah.
For a while, they were competing with the Titans up there, and then those last few weeks, they just fell off, and it culminated with the Jaguars game. And I mean, Carson Wentz is clearly a starting caliber quarterback, but I'm afraid he might be developing the Matthew Stafford syndrome.
Yeah.
The stats look good. He's on paper. He's a good quarterback. He's quality. He'll win you games, but can he make it to the playoffs? And then once he does, can he win a playoff game? Maybe to be seen. Maybe with the Colts. Maybe not with the Colts. We'll see how that ends up. But that was one of your bets that did not hit. Another one that also did not hit was Ezekiel Elliott to win the rushing title.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, you could say a lot of that was injury also. And that's another case where he was set up to do it. The guy improved his stock over the offseason last year by dropping some weight and getting into the best shape of his life. But he had a knee injury somewhere in the middle of the season and never actually recovered from it. Even though Jerry Jones insisted that he play every single game this season, he was just not himself after that. He was in a good position to do this. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, being the shooting star that he was, kind of took it away from anyone else anyway. But he was in the position to do it, but the injury pretty much derailed that. And we got to see Pollard for a good bit of the season. Pollard, sorry.
Tony Pollard, kind of two backfield there, exactly. Yeah, I know. I mean, with Jonathan Taylor being like 400 yards ahead of the second guy, it wasn't a close one. This looked like a decent pick at the start of the season, but it did not pan out. However, this next one is my favorite.
Oh, is this Daniel Jones?
Oh, best believe it is. This is gold. And when I read this out, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Kenny Gallaudet and Daniel Jones are to both be top 10 at their position.
Oh yeah, I knew that was coming. Well, in my defense, when I actually said that on the show, I said this is probably the longest shot that I've ever picked, and yeah, I should have known better, knowing that offensive line was just one of the worst in the NFL. But Daniel Jones has the ability. He just hasn't had a team around him to bring that out. I still think he's got a Josh Allen type season in him. somewhere. It's just going to take the right situation.
Yeah.
And
somewhere else.
Maybe somewhere else. Yeah, that might be what it is. Because their coaching situation is not getting any better next season. But Daniel Jones will still be there. And I guess it derailed itself early in the season too, when Gallaudet was not getting along with Daniel Jones, and that was apparent. They were arguing on the field. I knew right then that was not going to happen at that point, and could have happened with Kadarius Toney, who knows? But that didn't work out either after the injury. So, yeah, it just was a horrible season all the way around for the Giants.
This is no big spoilers ahead. This is the coldest take we have on this sheet.
I bet.
And honestly, like with Daniel Jones, I think the Daniel Jones part is even more forgivable given he had all the injury issues. He really didn't get to be a top 10 performer. This down season. Yeah. But as an avid fantasy player, do you know how many touchdowns Kenny Galladay scored this season?
Oh, maybe 1.
0.
Was it 0?
Not a touchdown. Not
like
one.
I said, like it was a turmoil from the time the season started. Because Gallaudet is good draft capital. He was being called Baby Megatron when he got to Detroit. There, the guy has the talent. He's an exceptional route runner, and he was perfect for the trajectory that Daniel Jones was on if the team could hold up their end of the bargain, if the coach could hold up his end of the bargain. And it just didn't work out. I mean, this could have been Allen and Diggs. This could have been Steve Smith and Cam Newton. But the offensive line was just too bad. And the coach is horrible, and I don't know why they're keeping him for another season. That's
another thing, right? We could talk about the coach firing situation and how somehow Brian Flores is out before Joe Judge. There's no justice in this world. One guy turns around the franchise from complete destitute to a damn near playoff team and a winning record. The other guy straps tennis balls to his players' hands. He still has a job. Guess who still has a job, right? But yeah, this needless to say, this bet lost. And Kenny Galladay fell off the map. I mean,
yeah.
We'll see if he's back, because that's a tough season to even recover from. Like, we were talking about him for a few seasons. He just fell off the map. This is the kind of season that some people don't come back from.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
This may be the last time we speak his name.
Yeah, exactly. Dante Pettis, it could be one of those situations.
Yeah. And he's with the Giants too, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine that.
Wide receiver hell. Next one that you picked, and this one, not too bad, but still didn't come true, was A.J. Brown being the league's number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, that definitely could have happened right there. If it wasn't for the injury. It seems like injury derailed all of this year. But, I mean, except for Gallaudet not having any kind of chemistry with Daniel Jones. But other than that, injury took out all of these predictions. Yeah,
A.J. Brown, when he was active, he was playing up to a good standard. But all in all, it was a tough... I said that it was a tough pick to make because of the Titans leaning on Derrick Henry. And then when he did get hurt... That should have, in theory, been the opportunity, but he just didn't quite make it. And again, same idea, I guess, with Zeke. You had an outstanding performer here in Cooper Kupp who just made it impossible for anyone else to have a chance to win. So that's your 5 bets. They all lost. That is 5 cans going my way, which is good news. Mm-hmm. Moving on to mine. There's 4 of them, and I'll say this: 2 of them have not resolved yet because they're playoff related. The first one is that the championship games in the NFC AFC will both be division rivalries. Mm-hmm. Entirely possible still, but not resolved yet. Though unlikely, because in the NFC, more likely than not, the Packers will make it, and there's no other NFC North team in the playoffs. So, unlikely, but if it happens, I win 9 monsters, so that would be very good. One that I made was that there would not be a single 1,000-yard rusher in the AFC East, and this is actually our only bold prediction so far that came true.
Yeah.
The single one. This one actually happened. Damien Harris came closest, I think, with 923.
Know, so close.
it was not far off, but he didn't quite make it. So even with 18 games. So 17 games. Even with that, I won this one, but it's only 1-1 because it was the least bold of the bunch. So but that's one more can. Justin Herbert being top 3 in quarterbacks MVP voting, not happened yet, and there's a good possibility that we actually won't get an answer to this because there's a good chance that only Rodgers and Brady will get votes. So we don't actually know if there's a third quarterback. But if a third quarterback gets a vote, we can definitely tell if it's Herbert or not. I guess Burrow is the other candidate at this point, if one does. But we have to wait until NFL honors for that one. And then my coldest take by far, the Panthers to win 5 games within division. That did not happen.
Yeah. Didn't
this offense,
Sammy.
They need Christian McCaffrey. This offense needs Christian. I mean, we saw him at the start of the season. After week 3, I felt like the smartest person ever with that pick. They were running
after
over
week
people.
3, Daniel Jones was looking on fire.
Man, Daniel Jones looking good. Darnold was looking great with the Christian McCaffrey. They were running read options like Cam Newton times. It was like with who was it? Stewart, right? What's his first name? Jonathan Stewart back Carolina, like 2014. That's what they look like with McCaffrey, and Matt Rule looked great, and then McCaffrey got hurt and the offense collapsed and the team collapsed. No matter what quarterback, no matter what they did, without the running back, it was over, and they did not win 5 games in their division. So that's
they barely won 5 games altogether.
Yeah, they barely did. So that's not good. That's one more going your way for losing that. 2 more bets to be completed with the division rivalries in the championship games, and Justin Herbert top 3 quarterback in the MVP voting. I have some hopes at winning 9 and 3 cans respectively, but we'll see how that plays out when we get there. Alright, do you want to quickly get into the coaching situation since we already mentioned it?
Yeah, definitely.
So we have a couple, actually a handful of coaches being fired on Black Monday, as we like to call it. Somewhat unsurprisingly, Matt Nagy is out, which you've been calling for I believe, the past 60 episodes of the Scoreboard, like every single time. Vic Fangio with the Broncos is also out, which I know he's a good coordinator. Maybe he should go back to doing that. Broncos didn't even have that terrible of a season, to be honest. There's worse teams that have not fired their coach, like the New York Giants, who have still not fired Joe Judge. I mean, he should have been fired after his first training camp, right, when he did the tennis ball thing, but they gave him 2 entire seasons, and now they kicked out his GM instead. And apparently they want to keep him around. This team, I mean, the Giants, this team is poisonous. The way this entire, like... When Tom Coughlin was out the building and then Eli Manning, like, all integrity left the house. Absolutely. It was, ever since then, nothing Ben was McAdoo going on.
Came in.
Yeah.
What's the general manager's name? I forgot his name.
No, Spielman was the guy from Minnesota. Yeah. Gettleman, right? Dave Gettleman? Yeah, Dave Gettleman.
God, it's been horrible.
No, he's out, but...
Is he? Yeah, he's out. Yeah,
he's out.
Right.
They did fire him. Still not Joe Judge, but
they kept Joe Judge and fired Gettleman.
This is a poisonous team. They need a deep clean. But I doubt that's going to happen this offseason. So if you want to like have an early pick for like dumpster fire of next year, give me the New York Giants all day, every day. They're gonna have a bad time for a while ahead if they don't change anything there.
I'm guessing, I could already guess your answer, I imagine, but who has the worst season next year, Matt Rule or Joe Judge?
Well, considering both still have their job,
exactly.
Joe Judge. Oh, Joe Judge, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Panthers, at least the Panthers have some young talent on defense. They can rush the pass a little bit. They have a selection of quarterbacks. They can play Sam Darnold. They can't. Cam doesn't stick around. They get Christian McCaffrey back. Like the Panthers can be a decent team if they improve in the draft. If Matt Rule actually like turns out to be a better coach than we gave him credit for, it's only his first year. The Panthers have upside, and I'm not too worried as a Panthers fan. Plus, the Saints and Falcons aren't very good, and the Bucs are getting worse, at least compared to last year as well. Somewhat surprisingly, it seems like the NFC East is now a tough division because you got the Cowboys in the playoffs, you got the Eagles in the playoffs, you got Washington, not completely horrible at least, and Giants were by far the worst team. So yeah. Giants all the way. I'd take Giants to be the worst team next year if I had to pick one now. And then the most surprising one, in terms of coach firings by far, Brian Flores. Yeah. This is interesting. This is very tough.
I've been thinking about this, and I'm wondering, it has to be personal relationships with the head office, because there's no way any team coming from what they had with Adam Gase to what Brian Flores has done. Like, this is night and day. This is a much better team than when Adam Gase was there. Like, this guy has turned the team around, and he's building a team. I mean, he was in a rebuild and actually getting better each season. It doesn't make much sense, but it has to be some kind of personal relationship that went sour. And I would assume, whoever comes in, whether it be Eric Bieniemy or somebody from college, Harbaugh or somebody like that, who knows? But I don't know. I don't know that the Dolphins get any better next season because of it. They're probably going to suffer because of this, because I think they were probably on their way to a playoff run next season.
Yeah, and they were close. They were close this season. I think this is a very weird firing, and this could be looked at as a mistake if the next guy is not a slam dunk. And if the next guy doesn't make the playoffs, I mean, you come in after this, you have one season. You don't get to rebuild. Like, you have one season to make the playoffs, and you have to contend, because that's what Brian Flores was going to do. I don't like this firing as much, because he got to draft his quarterback, he got to build his team, which has become much stronger, swept the Patriots, and had some moments, and for a stretch of time was one of the strongest teams in the league when they rallied back from being down 1-7. Why was he not fired then? How come you don't fire a coach when he's 1-7? He comes back to go 500. You fire him then?
9-8 even.
Yeah, when he catches like the momentum of his life, and he's got the team behind him, and Tua looks like the guy he finally looks like the guy he was drafted to be. I don't get this. I really don't understand this. And I've seen some speculation about the Dolphins owner apparently having some pretty good relations with the University of Michigan, which led a lot of people to speculate that this is going to be the landing spot for Jim Harbaugh. Now, there's nothing concrete about that, but it would give credence to this firing, because you only do this if you have someone lined up. Absolutely. Like someone who's a bombshell. Yeah. You don't do this to go out and interview like Bill O'Brien and go interview Mike McDaniel, and you do this if you have a big name coming up right behind. You got to unlock. Right? You don't play games, because you're giving away too much. If you're the Bears or the Giants, like, who cares, right? You're rebuilding anyway. You're not losing much. You have a lot to gain. But as the Dolphins, you get this wrong, you're setting yourself back 2 years, 2 entire seasons into the rebuild again. So I'm left wondering what's happening with this. No clue.
Yeah, well, you never know. Flores might be the next head coach of the Bears or something,
Just go on. Yeah, I've said this too. It's I would not be. You don't often see a head coach get fired and right away get a head coaching position again. Usually they go back to being a coordinator somewhere, work their way up. I wouldn't be surprised if someone gave him a call to be a coach again. Because it's a high profile firing. It could be, Though I love the idea of Jim Harbaugh to the Bears. That's probably my favorite thing, because I would love to see him with Justin Fields. Same for Tua, of course. But Brian Flores, he's better than a lot of head coaches who have jobs right now. Yeah. Be it some of the interim coaches, but also some like head coaches who've had jobs for a while.
One thing I will say about Brian Flores, though, draft capital doesn't mean anything to him. Like, you can draft he can draft the quarterback he wants. He wanted Tua, and we saw it when Fitzpatrick was there. He benched him, and no matter how well, Tua would win a game and still get benched the next game, So maybe
as a rookie, though, that's fair.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe that played into it. I don't know, but
Maybe.
Yeah.
It would suck if it did, because I totally agree with that philosophy. That's what they did with Trey Lance. That's what they did with Mahomes. Sure. I know people like to be impatient. They want to see the rookie, especially the media can be ruthless about it, but it tends to be the smart thing. Mm-hmm. That's what history would say.
Yeah, and it would have been nice for Trevor Lawrence probably to sit a season.
Oh, it would have. And it would have been nice for him to be a different organization, because if not the Giants, then the Jaguars. The Jaguars are in a horrible spot, because they're the kind of organization they're gonna hire like Bill O'Brien or something.
God, that'd be even worse than Urban Meyer.
Yeah, because there is no chance they ever get Jim Harbaugh, and that's going back to an old conflict. I don't know if you knew this, but Trent Baalke, the GM of the Jaguars right now, by the way, he's the Adam Gase of GMs. And he's the one who originally chased Jim Harbaugh out of San Francisco, who broke up that situation, replaced him with Jim Tom Sula and Chip Kelly before he was finally shown the road, and threw that team down a 3-year stretch of misery. And he's not getting things together either. He should be out of there easily. After that last fiasco with Urban Meyer, he needs to be out of there. Yeah. As a GM, and he does need to be a GM again for another team that seeks to be successful. So, with that history, there's no chance of Jim Harbaugh there, and with that GM in place, there's I don't see much chance for success, unfortunately.
I have fun thinking about what coaches he's reached out to so far, because I guarantee you, it's what's his name up in Cincinnati. I'm sure he tried to reach out to Harbaugh. I'm sure he's reached out to Kirby Smart. I mean, I'm sure, and he's probably.
You mean Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Nah, not Harbaugh. No way.
No, he wouldn't do it. But I guarantee you, they reached out to him.
No way. Yeah. He would resign before he pick up the phone to call Jim Harbaugh. It was bad. Yeah. It was bad back then. That was worse than the Brian Flores situation. Because remember that Harbaugh came off 2 consecutive NFC Championship games. They had 1 8-8 season, and he was axed. They were waiting for the second for him to show something of a reason. He was out of there.
I bet he's tried it, though.
They replaced him with the linebackers coach. Was never a coordinator. Threw him in, and then hired Chip Kelly. He would not pick up the phone. Yeah, that was a joke. He would not pick up the phone to Michigan. Not once. And neither should he, because why would Jim Harbaugh want to come there anyway? Yeah. The only person I really feel sad for here is Trevor Lawrence, and then tangentially also Miles Jack, because he's the one who didn't make it out. The one defensive star from 2017 who never made it out, and he's still stuck there.
Josh Allen's there too. That's a bright spot.
Yeah, that's true. Something to build on, but yeah, there's pieces up high. I think as good of an owner they do have, and I think they do have a great owner. Is building them a great facility. However much money you need, you can have it kind of owner, like Jerry Jones, but hands off, which is better. This is the kind of situation where you need to find the right person. If you're going to be so hands off as an owner, you can't do that with Trent Baalke. You need to have someone who's in charge of that organization, who knows how to do the right things, and that is the opposite of what's going on there. And yeah, Trevor Lawrence unfortunately is in a bad spot. But that is that. So next week we're going to have the predictions for the divisional round, and we're also going to have a supplemental topic that we add on to it. Now I already have something prepared for next week, and it's going to be at least one of the things is going to be a quiz, because we haven't done a quiz for a while. It's going to be a quiz for you, and it's going to be either the second iteration of is this player still in the league or not, or just some trivia quiz. I'm not sure yet. I'm putting both of them together. We'll see which one gets ready first, but both of them, either one should be pretty fun. So we'll have that. We'll have that next week. And if you have anything you want to talk about, you can come up with that as well. Yeah, definitely. Maybe some more coaching discussions or something. A lot of stuff will come up naturally anyway, as we now get the discussions about the coaching changes. Mm-hmm. So we'll definitely be able to fill the news somehow. And also, to anyone who didn't know it yet, we're going to have football in spring and summer again. Similar to 2020 when it was the XFL who tried, the USFL is back. Yes, that USFL, the old from the early 80s, the old USFL is coming back in 2022, starting
Walker,
in April.
The
Herschel Walker, Doug Flutie, Steve Young, Reggie White USFL. Yes, and even with some of the old school teams, they got the rights and all. It's gonna be great. Gonna be fantastic. 8-team league starting in summer, and we're gonna be covering that. I'm assuming. Still have to pick a team. I haven't. Don't have a clear favorite yet, but
me either.
But we'll see. So, but that's gonna be a good one. We're gonna cover that when that comes around. Looking forward to it. And this time, there's no team owned by Donald Trump who could run the league into the ground.
I was just thinking that. I didn't want to say it, but I was just thinking that same thing.
Yeah. It was like, all right. And the second season, they're going to play in the fall and just beat the NFL on TV ratings. Right? Exactly. But we're going to cover that for sure. That's going to be a good one. Thank you for watching this one. Let us know your predictions for the wild card round in the comments. Who's going to win? Why is it San Francisco and definitely not Dallas? And we're gonna see you in the next one.
Deuces.
Check the scoreboard. Ha. Check.